This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation Pop Experience. Welcome back. I know you know who I am, but just in case, I am Miranda, and this time you are hearing me on Lady in the Beard. And we are back for another episode to discuss something in the pop culture / nerd and or geek world. Of course, when I say we, I am not alone, and I am joined by one of my best friends in life, Kelley. How you doing today, Kelley?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was like, what adjective do I want to use today? I think good works. Fine always sounds passive-aggressive, and like, okay sounds like something's wrong, so I'll go with good.
Yeah, it's weird for me, too, when people ask, like, how are you? I will go to my default of, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I'll say that that's just my default. Even if I'm not, I'm going to say that anyway because I'm not, like, wanting to, you know what I'm saying.
Right. There's actually a phrase I learned about recently. I think it's in Polish, and it's basically like when things aren't going well, like, I guess they're just, like, honest about it. And it's like this phrase, it literally translates to something like, hang on, let me see if I can find it. If I remember, someone asks how you are. I saw this the other day and I died. I thought it was like the best thing in the world. But it's like this weird, basically saying like, I'm still broke. So it's like, and it's a basic greeting for people because they're like, why should I lie? So it basically roughly translates like you ask the person in Polish, like, hey, how are you doing today? And the person basically, they say, well, I'm still broke. Like,
yeah.
And I thought that was really funny that's just like widely accepted in their culture.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
I may have sent it to you on TikTok.
Maybe,
that's where I learned it. And I was like, oh, this is funny. But yeah, I'm with you. I think we all have a different setting, but that's okay. But today we're talking about something that's a little better than good, and it's not just fine. Well, there are some seasons that are just fine, but one of mine of your favorite things that we share, actually, it was one of the things that you and I first had conversations about when we became friends, and that is the world of Doctor Who.
Yep.
So we got, oh, sorry.
No, I had to cough. That's why I muted.
It happens.
But I was just going to say, yeah, I remember talking to you about that, or about the Doctor Who series, because I know I talk about this usually once every podcast. I'll mention my shop, but this is very relevant because the year I opened my shop was the same year that they brought back Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston, and so. You know, for me, that's always 2005 is a very important year to me because my store and one of my favorite shows came back, and not just came back, but came back gangbusters. I mean,
it was fantastic. 2005 is also a big year for me. That is the year that Jerry and I got married, and we found out we were having Caden. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So Doctor Who has played a significant role in both mine and Kelley's life. There are two versions of Who for all one big expanded universe. There's what a lot of the fans refer to as classic Who. I've even heard people say original Who, and then new Who or current Who. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it centers Doctor Who, the series or the franchise as a whole, it centers on a time traveler called the Doctor, who is often depicted as, but not always, coming from a race of beings known as the Time Lords. They travel through space and time in a time machine that they call the TARDIS, which does look like an old police box from the UK. It's on the outside, at least. On the inside, everything is bigger, right? It has indefinite dimensions on the inside. It is such an iconic shape in British culture that it's actually currently the intellectual property of BBC rather than its actual makers, the Metropolitan Police Service. So Doctor Who brought it to where the BBC actually owns the rights to it. Since the revival of Doctor Who, it has been primarily based in Wales by BBC, with its soundtrack performed by BBC National Orchestra of Wales since 2006. It is a British television series, but it is actually also a kind of global multimedia franchise, because since its inception, there's been a video game, there have been books, there have been audio dramas, just a little bit of everything. There have been spin-offs that have also actually been pretty good. And then I really want to, I think we should start kind of like with the original Who, honestly. I know less about original Who than you do. I did watch it. If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember, I had my notes and now I can't find it. When did original Who first air?
I want to say it was like 1963.
Mm-hmm.
Let me where I thought I had this. Oh no, that's the episodes. Too many tabs.
Okay. So at BBC One from November 23rd of 1963 until December 6th of 1989. So it was still on when I was born, and I do remember watching it. My mom has been watching it. My mom was actually born the year that it first aired. And it was a big hit with her as well. It's also one of her favorite series. So 63 to 89 is what you say original Who, correct?
Well,
or do you say classic?
When I was making my when I was working on my list,
Mm-hmm.
when I was typing, I just said the original series run was what I called it.
Okay.
But I mean, classic is is really better than original.
I think
Classic
so as well.
indicates like this is where it started,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of the longest running television shows ever. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
And have you ever actually seen all of the episodes? Because before we get into everything, like there are missing ones.
Yeah, I've seen, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into our favorites. But yeah, I've seen quite a few of the classics over the years. So
there are a list of missing episodes from Classic Who, and I find it hysterical how this came to be. And in our current media minds, you're like, how does that happen? But what essentially happened is they would record these episodes, right, as they were filming on an actual tape, like a reel. If you don't know what that is, Google it, boys and girls. Kelley and I are that old.
Everything was on tape back then. I mean,
like big video reels,
television series, everything. So yeah, I mean, it was a physical piece of media.
It's really fascinating too.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this, but they were extremely expensive, new videotape reels. And so it was not uncommon for BBC to do this. And I don't know if they thought at the time, because this happened to some episodes between 1963 and 1978. So this is probably when they're still wondering, like, how well is this going to be perceived? They also didn't know in the future it would be so beloved, probably, because I'm sure they would have done their best had they known. But, like, you can't know. But
Mhm.
BBC, from time to time, would wipe old master tapes. And they
Yeah.
would reuse them instead of purchasing new ones to save money. I thought it was really funny, but it was actually standard procedure. So like now they're like looking back, going like, oh my gosh. But during production, the BBC Film Library and BBC Enterprises were conflicted over which of them had the responsibility for actually archiving the Doctor Who master reels as well. So it's like one section of them were not obligated to store productions not recorded on film, and this kind of prompted them to also destroy their copies. So like it was not a big deal that they got rid of the originals because it's like, oh, we have a copy. But so these people were like, we're not obligated to keep these copies. We don't need them anymore. So then meanwhile over here, like I said, the BBC's already wiped their reels due to a combination of like they don't need them, high price tag on magnetic videotapes, because with the advent of color television as well. So we have lost a total of, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as well as like random sections from certain episodes. So if you were trying to go back and start at the beginning, you will never accurately be able to according to the list of episodes. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. There was a, this isn't part of Doctor Who, but it kind of goes in with like what you're talking about as far as um, television production companies and you know, trying to save money, and also, you know, back in the 60s and so forth. I saw this interview with Betty White and she was talking about how like she did a lot of game shows in the early 60s, pilots and things like that for game shows, and she was talking about the fact that no one ever thought of syndication, that you know they hadn't syndication hadn't really been created. So once you made this game show, why would anybody want to watch it again? So
Right.
you know there's all this vintage television from that era that's gone. And it might have been the same kind of situation for the BBC, looking at, well, you know, we could save money by wiping and reusing these tapes. And you know, once syndication came about, and the television companies and the whatever started realizing, hey, we can sell our product to these other stations so they can play it and set up their own lineup of television for their whatever, you know, area they provide to. So yeah, it's sad that, you know, some of those episodes were lost. But you know, thank God it's no more than that. You know, if you think about it, it's a handful compared to like I said, the numerous episodes that the Doctor Who series has. I mean, it's
like, well, it's pretty much all of the first and second Doctor are gone. I thought it was just that many that I counted earlier, but I'm wrong. I'm now looking at the actual like list of missing. It's way more than I just said. I apologize. It's like it's crazy.
Well, there's the way that they used to show Doctor Who was in 30-minute or 25-minute segments. They didn't show like the entire, because they broke it down to like show it every week. So they may have like an hour episode, or like an hour episode that's broke down into maybe 15 or 20-minute little segments that they would show, or something like that. They didn't show like
right.
Like, you know, in today's media consumption, we're like watching whole seasons over a 3 or 4 day period, or
right.
we're watching an
you
hour.
Had to wait. You had the patience you had to have for a show, even in the 80s. Like you must have some patience.
Well, even most shows like Star Trek: The Next Generation, or you know, Friday the 13th, the series, or the, some of the shows that I watched in the late 80s, they were usually only 45 minutes long because you had to account for 15 minutes of commercials.
Which the good thing is
split throughout the episode.
Right. The good thing is this aired so it's from BBC. So like a lot of the original airings, the breaks are less because actually because Andy and I talk about this on the Muppets podcast. So for Muppets show originally, I don't know if you may have known this. If you did, sorry. But like on the Muppet shows, on the UK versions of it, there's an additional like skit that takes place, and they actually refer to it as the UK spot. And it's because the commercial time in the UK is less of that than the commercial time in America.
See, they're even smarter than we are as far as doing commercials. I mean, it's like, though I don't think most young people, or I should say like younger generations, let me say that so I don't sound like an ageist, but they.
So we don't get a message that says, okay, boomer.
Yeah, because I'm not a boomer, Gen X. Gen X, folks, please.
You're actually Gen X, but like.
Yeah. Gen X. And I think all of my Gen X, brothers and sisters would agree that there's nothing that you'll never be able to appreciate a commercial. Because that was for me, like, I got to go get a snack. I got to get a drink.
Oh, yeah.
Or I got to go to the bathroom real quick. You got 2 minutes to go do something else real quick, and you have that with commercials. And so
I will say the invention of pausing is bloody brilliant.
Yeah, when you like, I never had that. I know, like, you could get certain TV. I want to say that was introduced maybe in the 90s or something, where you could pause TV. You had to have like a certain package.
We didn't have it. I don't remember.
Was it DVR?
Yes, it's when the TiVo. The TiVo was like the first version of the DVR, and it was specifically called, actually, boys and girls, it was called TiVo, and you could only get it from. It was like if you had like direct TV, it was only one, or you could buy it on your own. But it was like, it sounds weird, but it was very expensive for a TiVo box. And you could DVR and pause. And I think you may have been able to pause before that, but you had to have it wasn't just basic cable. You had to have like advanced premium cable or dish or direct or something to be able to pause. Because I do remember, because I was in high school in the 90s, and I do remember some of the houses I babysat for, you could pause things, and it was like, what is this sorcery? Like. But I think you had to have like direct or dish, and you couldn't pause everything, if I remember correctly.
But you could instead of like, having an old school VCR and set it up to record a TV program or to record it while you're watching, the DVR, you could set it up to record or whatever, and you had like so much space to record, and so but yeah, do you want to get into our list?
Yeah. So we're going to start with Classic Who. So as we said, this started November 23rd of 1963. BBC One audiences were invited to join an ancient time traveler and his companions on adventures in space and time for the very first time. I'm not sure when this came to America. I'll look that up while we're doing our list. BBC actually this goes on to become the longest running sci-fi show in history since the first one actually broadcast. We have had 14 actors now starring as the Doctor. And the reason this episode idea came is not just because we love it, but there is a new series. It is available on Disney Plus, which I think is fascinating because I feel like that gets it in more homes. And we have a new Doctor. And so we were like, this is a perfect time to kind of like give a breakdown. Now, in all transparency, neither one of us have watched the new Doctor's. So I've seen clips, and he seems fantastic. I'm very excited for him, but I have not watched any of the episodes in their entirety yet. But I'm excited to see where that goes. But we're going to start with Classic Who, as we referred to it. As I said, I feel like Kelley knows more about Classic Who than I do. So I'm going to kind of let you start and tell me some of your favorites.
Okay. So my introduction to Doctor Who was in the 80s. And on Sundays on the PBS channel, usually it was like 12 or 1 o'clock, you could watch a full episode of Doctor Who. But I didn't know, I mean, I didn't just stumble upon it because of my friends, my other gamer buddies, nerd buddies, comic buddies. They started talking about this British TV series that came on PBS, around 1 o'clock or noon or whatever on Sundays. And so I said, I'm going to check this out and see what it's all about. The episode that I remember watching was called Genesis of the Daleks, and it was the first appearance, I believe, of Sarah Jane Smith, and this was the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, who I think a lot of Gen X folks from that period, I think that was their introduction to Doctor Who, and really kind of cemented their love, or my love, for the show. This tall, lanky looking dude in a long coat and a ridiculously long scarf and hat, battling, these ridiculous looking robots that have the most annoying voice. I was sitting there in my room.
They really do have the most annoying voice.
Yeah. Just going, what the heck is this? This is crazy.
We are not Daleks.
Yeah. And then talking to my friends about it, it was like, because we didn't know. We didn't have any like source material to look at. And that's where I started looking for when I would go to bookstores or going to places. I would try to find stuff on Doctor Who so I could find out more about it. Because I didn't, it's not like today where a lot of shows have this little origin, little piece that they say, hey, this is, we're watching this, this episode comes up and it's like, these are the further adventures of blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Didn't have that. And so I didn't know what a Time Lord was. I didn't know what a Gallifreyan was, which that's the race that he is Gallifreyan, and didn't know any of it. But over the time of like now Sundays at 1 o'clock, my ass is in my room watching Doctor Who. The more that I watched, the more I understood what this person was, what, the fourth Doctor, or Tom Baker, was, and just became more and more. I wanted to know everything. So it was like when I would get with my other friends and we would sit and discuss and speculate, and especially the TARDIS. That was the one thing, like, they would have segments where they would be inside the TARDIS and you could see the console room and kind of the wardrobe room but that was the main. I was more interested, not so much like, don't get me wrong, I love the Doctor, but the TARDIS itself was something that always had my attention. I was like, I want to know how this thing works.
The TARDIS is kind of like a living being in itself. Like, it's kind of its own being as well. Is where we've gone over the years. At least that's what I gather, and maybe we're getting too far ahead, but like that's how I've always looked at it. Because like he talks to the TARDIS, all of the doctors do. They talk to the TARDIS, and it's like they have this relationship. And I'm with you. I find the TARDIS extremely fascinating because one of the things we didn't mention is you and I are talking about like Fourth Doctor, Fifth Doctor, 10th Doctor, or whatever, is they have regenerative abilities, but when they regenerate, instead of just like, oh, I grew my arm back, they literally become another person and take on another form. And what is really cool, since Kelly's talking about the TARDIS, is when they regenerate, the inside of the TARDIS changes and adapts and becomes something new as well.
Yeah, that's that's something more, I think, that wasn't Classic Who. The TARDIS
kind of stayed pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same. There might have been some, subtle changes to way, like especially the console. The console was the biggest thing that would change over time. Its look. It became more like from Tom Baker's era. There's a lot more knobs and dials and levers and things like that. But going through, the fifth and sixth and seventh, there became like more keyboards and more kind of displays and a little more updated tech looking,
Yeah. And then as you go to New Who, it actively changes like with each Doctor generation.
I love that. That's one of the things I love about the modern or current Who is that. But Tom Baker is my favorite Doctor from the classic era, and as far as companions go, Sarah Jane, I know she tops, like if you look at like any of the top companions list, she's usually in the first three, in the top three, or either number one. She's just a fantastic actress, and
she's my favorite too.
And like just an awesome character. The other character from the Fourth Doctor's era was a character called Romana. Now Romana, I was super obsessed with her when she first appeared because she was a time lady. She was another Gallifreyan that was assigned to Tom Baker's Doctor for God, I can't remember the arc that was going on.
Oh, I don't remember either.
But she was assigned to help him, and during the course of her hanging out with the Doctor, she actually regenerated. There's another actress that played her, and the actress that played the second Romana and Tom Baker, actually, I think they married for a while. They had a relationship. But I was just fascinated. Oh my God, here's another Gallifreyan, because the only other one that you really saw was the Master, and he was an asshole. Or you saw various Gallifreyan characters. Maybe it was the Arc of Time. I don't remember.
Let me look.
Yeah, look up Genesis of the Daleks, because there was the Black Guardian, the White Guardian were trying to get the Doctor. It was the Key of Time. The Key of Time is what it was called.
Okay.
And then the third, and it's an honorable mention, I think, for me, but he is one of my favorites, and that's K9. He first appeared.
I figured.
The Invisible Enemy. That's a crazy episode. I really, I'm not going to talk about it because there's a lot going on in it, and it would just, but it's worth checking out. But yeah, K9, just mechanical dog, and just his voice wasn't really annoying like the Daleks. He had kind of this friendly, or it might be kind of irksome to some people, but I adored it. I thought it was awesome, and I was like, man, I want a K9.
It's your text message tone. It has been for years.
Yeah. Incoming message, Master. I can't do an accent, and I'm sorry if anybody's listening. I wasn't trying really.
Oh, I can.
Uh,
I think it makes some people mad, but I can.
Let me see if this is. Let me.
So while you're looking up your thing, I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
piggyback and say
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
my companion for Classic Who was also Sarah Jane, whom, without spoiling things, you do get to see again, which I love. Daleks, also my favorite villain. I think that the Daleks are really what kept me and made me go, okay, I want to continue into this new Who. And K9, like, how do you not love K9? I classified, so I have this thing that I wrote down that I was like, favorite sidekick, question mark, because they're not a companion. We have this happen throughout Who in general, old and new, where we have these characters where they're not a companion, but they're kind of there as like a extra companion / sidekick. They don't last long usually, or they're in and out. That's what I kind of classified K9 as. Like, he's not really a companion, but he's a sort of permanent fixture. Like,
Yeah. He's like a supporting.
yeah.
I like the supporting character. Anyway, I found it. Here it is. I actually don't. I didn't really retire it, but I picked up a new one that I've been using for the last few years, and it's. It's Jarvis.
Oh, okay.
But
It's a good one.
yeah, it's the classic series. Some people like our friend Blake.
Mhm.
We sat down and we watched the Five Doctors one afternoon, and this was like, Blake has only watched the modern day or the modern day Who, so he loves that, and I'm showing him his first classic Who episode. I showed him the Five Doctors because I wanted to like show all of them, like these are the original five. Well, not I think the original William Hartnell had passed away, but they got a really good stand-in, or kind of someone who they made him look like him. So, but Blake was like, "This is horrible." He goes, "These special effects, what the hell?" I mean,
You're like, bro.
Yeah, he's like, bro, what is this? What is this crazy? This is cringy. I said, dude, this is what Doctor Who was back in the day.
It's all used bone.
Yeah, and he's like, that monster that's silly. That is not scary. Just the whole, and I get it. It's like if you go back and you watch old episode, the original run of Star Trek, where you have like the foam monsters and the really bad. You could tell they're on a sound stage. They're not really on location somewhere.
I love it though.
But yeah, but some people can't get past that, and I understand it. I mean, if you're used to all of these kind of new bells and whistles and lights and all of that, the old stuff is not going to cut it. But that's what I would,
I think that's why Daleks as his favorite villain works. For those that don't know, they're like this robot creature thing that have a living being like inside of them, but they're a extraterrestrial race of extremely xenophobic mutants. They are highly fascinating, and honestly, I won't lie, I read where they got the inspiration from, and I was like, that makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
So they got the inspiration for these creatures from the Nazis.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it again, boys and girls. I don't want to get our... But that's where the inspiration comes from. And if you watch them, you're like, this makes so much sense. But they're one of the few things in Who that it's not altered a whole lot between old and new. And I kind of love that about them. I mean, they're a little shinier. The dimensions are a little bit different, but overall, they're pretty much the same.
Right. My second is Peter Davidson.
That's my favorite.
When Tom Baker left being Doctor Who, he regenerated, and Peter Davidson took over as the Doctor. And at that time, it was kind of a little, I don't want to say controversial, but there was some grumblings because it was like, this guy's really super young. Everybody was, I mean, all these other actors were older. I mean, Tom Baker was sort of the youngest looking out of.
He was.
You know, I mean, because John Pertwee had the white hair, and even though, I mean, he was, you know, he kind of looked a little bit older than probably what he was. And then, you know, William Hartnell, of course, was the original, the old gentleman. And then, oh my God.
Let's see. You have
William Hartnell,
Pertwee, Colin Baker, Tom Baker,
John Pertwee. Oh, come on. God, getting old is just fucking stupid.
It really is.
I used to rattle these names off.
Oh, me too.
Are you looking? Because it's my ADHD or.
I definitely have ADHD. Somebody the other day was like, how do you know you have ADHD? And I was like, well, a doctor told me so. And then he sent me to another doctor to verify who also told me so. So
I'm just saying it's my it's my age.
So we got Pertwee, Baker, Tom. Oh, I always say his name wrong. Is it Troughton?
Patrick Troughton. Patrick Troughton.
Thank you. Patrick Troughton.
That was the second doctor.
Yes.
And he kind of had this weird bowl cut that was.
Yes, he did. But it was of the times, because this is his appearance was like from 66 to 69. So he has like a Beatles cut, which is when they were big in that.
Right.
And then, William Hartnell. William Hartnell was the first doctor.
But getting back, Peter Davidson was so young, and to me, I was like, holy crap. You know, because at this point I had a few books, and and these books talked about the previous doctors, and I knew who the actors were, and they talked a little bit about him, and I was like, you know, this was awesome. So here I was at the beginning, like Tom Baker, I you know, was halfway through his run, I think, when I started watching. So
well, and we got it a little bit behind too. So like, think. Okay, so if you are a millennial, or I'd say an elder millennial, I don't know so much about the younger ones because a lot of us elders are on the cusp of being a Gen X. But like those of us that were like elder millennials / Gen X, we had PBS because it was free, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have to pay for that. And thank God for PBS because it was most of us childhood. But what it also did is it brought the things from the BBC to America. Like that's how we got, and to this day they still do. That's how like the world was introduced to Great British Bake Off, because but PBS aired it. Downton Abbey, PBS aired it. So like thank you PBS for bringing us all of the lovely things from the UK. But it was a little behind, I think, from their airing to when we got it.
Yeah. You don't want to forget Two Fat Ladies.
Do what?
You've never seen Two Fat Ladies?
Oh, I feel like I should know this, but
the British cooking show. When we're done with
it, yes,
you should look it up. There's a lot of episodes on YouTube.
I do remember this.
They're fantastic, and I ended up catching on to those. Like when I moved out on Sundays, I think later in the evening you could watch those. You
could. They came on, it was in like the 90s, I want to say. And I think I think you're right. I think I saw the other day that these were on YouTube now. But my favorite one, and I don't know why I remember this, and I literally think it may be the very first episode ever, is when it's just called Fish and Shellfish.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I loved about those ladies. Now that you bring them up, it was like the name of the episode was very just like fruits and vegetables, meat.
Yeah, I mean,
Like it was.
the premise is they would go and cook for some organization or some group, or like they cooked for some nuns in one episode, and they went and cooked for some children at some school or whatever, and they would prepare a meal, and they would both prepare parts of whatever they were making for lunch or dinner. But it was really entertaining, and
we got a lot of British comedy too from.
Yeah, but I loved Peter Davison. He was
Me too. He's my favorite.
young, and I got to follow his whole run. Now, something else at this time too was when I had worked and I had saved up enough money, and I bought my own VCR.
They were expensive then.
They were. This thing was like, I want to say 300.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And I'd saved up allowance, and I went out and bought one. And I started recording every Sunday. I had all my tapes labeled. I had the episodes, what doctor it was. I mean, I'm talking these cassette holders that would hold like 12 tapes. I had multiples of those stacked up.
My grandpa did the same thing. I know I've talked about it on other podcasts I've hosted or guested on. I don't know if I've talked about it here, but growing up, my grandpa had the VCR like you had, but do you remember the one that you could use that was literally just for recording? Like you couldn't watch. Because at least with yours, you could pop it back in and watch it.
Yeah, I think so.
So he had two TVs, and one of them would be recording something, and that's how I had all the Doctor Who I did growing up. And the other one, he would be watching something he already recorded, and he would try to keep up with, like, if this tape had Doctor Who, he'd try to put only Doctor Who. And he would also go to, on Tuesdays, if you remember, you go to, like, the local movie store, and he would get all the new releases. And this is so illegal. He wasn't making money off of this, so it's illegal, but it's also not. But he would watch it, record it, rewind it, take it back. And so he had these binders downstairs. One was alphabetical order. Another binder was by category, like horror, children's, sci-fi, and then in alphabetical order. And then the other one was numerical. And he literally, I know you remember this, but there used to be these stickers when you bought a cassette tape. And there's like a sheet of stickers where you could label it. Well, he labeled it by hand, but then he would use the numbers. And when he passed, there were over 9,000 different VCR cassette, like tapes, not movies or shows. There were 9,000 cassettes, and he would buy the ones that you could put like 8 hours worth of content on.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. Like, you and I grew up like that. We were like, oh, we were recording this, and we were like, but what was great, and I love to this day, is like, yes, I grew up like not as financially stable as some of my friends, but like I had all this media at my fingertips because my grandpa was financially stable, and his pastime was recording, and the man watched everything he recorded, and he loved every genre of everything that there was. And like when X-Files came out and he found out my aunt and I both loved it, he recorded it what that man did after he retired. He literally sat in front of the TV, tended his garden, but there was, even when he was out in the garden, his TV was on recording something, Bonanza, X-Files, something. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, I gotta tell this story. So literally it would be like, you'd go to cabinet A, and in cabinet A on tape 1042 would be like season 6 of Doctor Who.
Right. Yeah. When I would go to the video store, I would buy, I was buying the top end blank tapes.
There were better versions.
Yeah, because I wanted the best quality that I could get. And you had like different, like you could set it up that every tape you could record at different, like if you wanted just to record, like the best quality would be like 2 hours. You had like 2, 4, and 6, something like that. And like, when I first started doing it, I was trying to get as much as I could on a tape. So I was doing like 8 hours, recording, and they were okay. The quality was decent. But then I
Yeah, it was pretty good.
noticed, if I went down and I started just recording at 4 hours, the quality was a lot better, and I started kind of doing that. But I always bought the best quality tapes that had the best.
I remember there being a price difference in
Yeah,
like the
there
brand
was.
that you could get.
Like whenever they would have sales or whenever, I would go on and just stock up, and like my friends who didn't know Doctor Who, I would have this whole library to go, hey, let me introduce you to this really cool show.
Yeah.
And as far as like the companions for or for the sixth, fourth, fifth Doctor, again, I don't really. There wasn't like a companion that the companions all kind of felt the same to me, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, they were all different from different walks of life. I think the one that kind of stands out, I guess, is Perpigillium Brown. She was, because all of the other companions that the Doctor had were of like British origin,
right?
And the actress Nicole Bryant, I think is her name. She was a British actress, but she was portraying an American, so she was speaking, English or.
Why didn't we just hire an American?
Well,
listen,
it didn't
if they ever
really
want
matter.
another American companion, I volunteer.
She had a great accent, or American accent, so
okay.
But that was the only thing that stood out, and she was a companion that was what I call gifted. Like when Peter Davison regenerated into Colin Baker, Perry was gifted over to Colin Baker because that's
which we'll see again.
Yeah, again.
Which I kind of like that, the gifting that like the companion doesn't leave. Because they're so attached to like we don't care. I like the sentiment of like I am attached to you as a person, and like you as your being, not like what you visually look like. So like whether it's sometimes companions have been like borderline love interest,
right?
And sometimes they have been like just we are good friends, and I like. And maybe it's just the romantic in me, even though I'm also a cynical person. There's a part of me that's the romantic, even when you're talking about platonic things. I like the gifting of a companion, because then it's like you stuck with that person no matter what. Like staying with a friend through an addiction, or staying with a partner through like weight gain or age change. I don't know. I think it tells a good story that like maybe automatically you don't realize that's what it's telling, but that's what I get with it.
I don't remember like really any. There were probably like some. I think like with Perry, she did say like that when she met the sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, he was such a jolt to the series, and his fashion sense. Now I always liked his outfit, but I am in the minority when it comes to that. But it showed how erratic this incarnation of the Doctor was. And Perry really missed Peter Davison. And she, that first episode when she was dealing, because he was all erratic because of the regeneration was still kind of cooking, and he was not completely 100% himself. It was night and day, and she was not liking it at all. But those Peter Davison and Tom Baker those were my doctors. So,
Mm-hmm.
what about you? Let's hear your classic.
So I agreed with you on some already and mentioned
Mm.
them. For example, my companion was Sarah Jane. My villain is always the Daleks, because I think I started watching. It would have been the tapes that I started watching were of the Fifth Doctor, Peter Davidson. So he's always been my favorite. Um, I just really enjoy him. I really enjoy K9. I don't have a favorite episode though, because it's been so many years since I've watched them. I can't just like name an episode like I can of like New Who. Like where in New Who I can actually say, oh, in like blah blah blah. I can't do that.
Right.
And then I do find it funny that my favorite doctor actually comes and plays an important role later, like not knowing this would ever happen. But he has a tie to New Who, and not just because he was the former doctor. It's crazy. Peter Davidson ends up leaving, of course, as the Fifth Doctor. Goes on, does other things in his life, and he has children. And his child ends up guest starring. Her name is Georgia. Georgia ends up guest starring later when we have the 10th Doctor as just an extra role, and ends up marrying the 10th Doctor in real life.
Yeah.
And her dad was the 5th Doctor.
Right.
So I don't know. I've always found that highly fascinating. Those are my favorites from. I hate to have less about classic than I do new, but I think that's where the joy was rekindled, and like I've really dove in, and I have more memories. Is New Who?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to add about Classic Who before we kind of skip on over?
No, I think it kind of, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
hit the points that I,
Yeah.
wanted to hit.
Yeah. There are places that you can watch Classic Who. I have found it through some IPTV services. I believe it's also on. I think some of it is also on Disney Plus now. Please don't. I'm not saying for certain because it's very weird who has the rights and what is happening. Because, for example, the New Who that we're going to talk about is not on Disney Plus. Only the brand new, like, came out this month. He'd be the 14th Doctor, is what is now appearing on Disney. And I think that's because BBC was like, you are absolutely not getting the rights to our back catalog. For a while, it was on Netflix. Do you remember that?
Uh-huh.
That's how I ended up going back to it. Was it popped up on Netflix, and I was like, wait, I haven't seen this in forever. Because again, if you didn't have cable or you didn't have DVR, once 2005 came along, like you were missing it. So at some point, BBC decides we are going to bring back Doctor Who. I think this was. Do you think this was it because of Moffat, or were we at Moffat yet? Russell T Davis, really, who?
Russell T Davis was the one who brought Who back.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So it came back in March 2005. So dedicated fans of the show had kind of been deprived for 16 years. They really thought that when it ended with the 8th Doctor that was it. 10 million people watched the debut episode of New Who, which is Christopher Eccleston or Eccles.
Yeah.
I've heard it pronounced like so many different ways, so I apologize.
Yeah, you're good.
So yes, Russell T Davidson, who is responsible for the revival, he managed to refresh Doctor Who while keeping it familiar, I felt. And he brought a new look to the Doctor as well. So we immediately opened New Who with a whole new Doctor. We didn't get to really see the regeneration. He just mentioned, like, he just brings it up. and talks about it. And I will go ahead and say I have heard so many people crap on Eccleston's doctor, and I genuinely don't know why.
I
He's
I
not.
agree.
I like him so much.
I think I saw an interview with him and the actress who played Rose,
Billy
and
Piper.
I remember him saying somebody was asking him some who questions, and it was about like, you know, I think about him playing the Doctor, and I think Eccleston enjoyed playing the character, but there were, I think, things within the company, within BBC, within that that he didn't that he wouldn't put up with, you know. And
there was some sort of animosity, or there was some work environment dissatisfaction, if I remember. It had to do with like crew and co-stars, but he never said who. It was because of the crew, how the crew and the co-stars were treated. That's what it was. He was not okay with how the treatment of some people were. And he didn't say by whom. So it could have been higher ups at BBC. It could have been producers. We don't know. And apparently it got extremely heated. And basically they looked at Eccleston, and like he was leaving anyway. And they were like, well, then just go. And BBC is known for that. They did that with the guys from Top Gear.
Eccleston comes across to me as just a really fine individual who doesn't put up with bullshit. And calls people, or will call people out on it. And I've known people like that, and those kind of people are usually 100% right in their standing. So usually, I hated to see that I would have loved to have seen another season with him, but
it would have been interesting to see the storyline that comes after him that still includes Rose, how that would have played out. It actually as him.
Yeah, but I'm glad that. I'm glad he was picked, and that he was the first for the new modern Who series.
I think he did a great thing of rejuvenating it. I think he was a fantastic person to pick. Although he's not my favorite in the new, we get my favorite with the regeneration. I'll just go ahead and say that while we're kind of like breaking things down. We get my favorite Doctor of New Who when he regenerates into 10, which is also David Tennant. That just is coincidence that his last name is Tennant and he's number 10. But he is my absolute favorite. And they're, again, like you were mentioning earlier, their mannerisms and their, like, he goes from like kind of stern, like you don't know if he's joking, to like very jokey and like dramatic and quirky, and I love that. But I don't know, and I hate that I'm saying this, but I don't know if you had started off with Tennant as 9. I don't know if it would have worked the same. I think you needed that vast. Billy Piper's character of Rose was just kind of like, I mean, she is. It literally shows you in the first episode when they meet each other. She's carefree. She has a job, but she's like young 20s, doesn't really know what she wants yet in her life. Most people in that age don't. She's just kind of like living this like London, like average middle class life. Struggling to get by, living in a flat with her mom. And I don't think, and even though her and Tennant work really well together, I don't think if you had made Tennant the introductory, it would have worked the same. And that's why I'm glad we got Christopher Eccleston. But again, a lot of people really did not like him, and I just don't understand that.
Fandom. I mean, you.
Oh yeah.
You can't please the masses. There's the way it is now, because just the way social media is, anything is under scrutiny. Back in the day, you could have you could have difference of opinion among your social group, and that was about the extent of it. Now we're just inundated with just toxic levels of like people shitting on things because they don't like this or they don't like that. And I completely ignore everything. I just watch it. If I like it, great. If I don't, okay, it wasn't for me, and I move on. So,
and
all
I'm
less
known
stressful.
for. You're the same way. Even if it wasn't for you, you may like you've texted me before and been like, "Hey, have you watched blah blah blah?" I didn't like it, but I think you might. Like,
Well, yeah, I
and
mean that was my realization when I came to the conclusion that, oh my God, I'm one of these really super toxic fans, and it was all because of Star Trek Discovery, and I, hate watched
well,
a couple of seasons and shit all
we
over it,
did. Oh, and we
and
texted each other.
yeah, and I would sit there and get drunk and watch
Yes, me too.
watch the episode and just completely rag on it, and
Yeah.
then I just came to this realization because I started reading some of the forums and these people that were really enjoying the show,
Yeah.
really picking things out of it that they loved. And I said, you know what? I'm a dick. This show isn't for me, obviously. And I could just move away and
Yeah.
not give it any more time. But it is for certain people, and they
It's
love it. And you don't need to shit on things that other people love. That's not nice.
it's like that TikTok sound where it's like, "Is it me? And am I the problem?" And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I'm a problem."
that
And
was
I
me.
think
I was like,
also,
yeah, I'm the
yeah,
villain
and
in this episode.
yeah,
So
like,
I got my shit straightened out, and
but I think
now it's a lot easier.
anytime you're a fan of anything, at some point in your fan career, if you want to call it that, or your
Yeah,
time, you're gonna hit you're gonna go into toxic territory. It like
yeah,
we
yeah.
shouldn't, but like everybody does because they have a hill that they want to die on, right?
Right.
Like I die on the fact that David Tennant is my favorite. Like I'll say
Yeah.
that, but like I'm not gonna. But so I think we all do that, and we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace as well in our growth, and say like, okay, I was rude, and I'm gonna be better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's as I've gotten older, I've really started to look back at my own opinions of things and my own what I thought was dogma, what I thought was etched
Mhm.
in stone. I've changed a lot of those opinions, and it's like, you know what? It's okay to go back and go, yeah, that was probably not the best. And feel free to change your opinion, change your mind on
Mhm.
things. You don't have to have this rigidity of like, yeah, that's what I believed, and I have to
Right.
stand by it. Well, you don't. If you go back and reflect on it and you find flaws in it, you don't
Right.
like the way you came to
'Cause,
that conclusion, you can change it. You
for
know?
example, we've gone back and actually given the Star Trek Discovery another chance, and we were like, okay, when I left my prejudices aside, this is actually not so bad, and I think I like it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went back and I rewatched. I haven't watched like the fourth and fifth. I know the fifth is like the last season, their
I
final
haven't
season.
either.
But I
Yeah.
did go back and I rewatched the first three, and I was like, there's certain things in the show that I think is kind of neat.
Mhm.
I like certain things. I wouldn't say that I love the show.
Same.
I like it. It
Same.
is a definite change in the way Star Trek kind of looks
Hmm.
and the way it's I guess the way it kind of sets within the whole Star Trek universe. It has its own really, I mean, it stands out as its own thing, which
Hmm.
is good. But like I said, it's the same thing for comics or other television shows. Uh, not everything has to be for you. You
Right.
know,
And it's
um,
also part of grabbing a new audience, kind of like they did with
yeah,
Doctor
yeah,
Who, is they wanted to grab a new generation of audience, which one of the brilliant things I think they did is, I want to say about 2018, 2019,
sorry, yeah,
Disney did start getting the rights to part of Doctor Who, and they have a channel called Disney XD, which is more for like a little bit older kids. Um, and the smart decision they made is they started with Tennant, and they aired Tenet and Up on Disney XD, and they grabbed a whole new generation of tiny little Gen Z kids that now also love Doctor Who. So it is hard, I think, as someone who has followed something for so long, like you and I have since the 70s or the 80s. And I'll mention my mom again in a minute. Like I said, like she's been following this since the 60s, and sometimes there are changes that are made to your beloved thing that it's like really angry you. And sometimes we have to step back and say, okay, this change is being made for gathering new and current people, not necessarily, this is not for me, and I have to like take it with a grain of salt kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, sorry?
I was just going to agree with you. I was like, yeah, I'm happy that Who is still on the air and that there's new people coming to it and enjoying it, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like Caden watched 9. So I started the rewatch. I had watched 9 in 2005, and I didn't get to see it in its entirety. So when they released it on Netflix, I don't remember what year that was. I started with 9, and Caden was kind of interested. And then when he saw 10, he was like, oh, wait, I like this guy. He's funny. And that's when he really started paying attention, and then I could share it with him.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite Doctor is obviously Tennant for, season 2. We only got 1 season of Eccleston. Some of these Doctors we get more than 1 season for. And with that, is my favorite companion will always be Rose. Like, she just captivated me and stuck with me in a way that she has several episodes where when I was rewatching them recently, I was texting Kelley and I was like, I'm crying. I forgot how sad this is. I'm crying.
Yeah.
So what are and we may not be to them yet because I don't remember I know who your favorite companion is, but I don't remember who your favorite Doctor is. So before we kind of like move forward, who's your Doctor and companion?
Well, let me first preface by, because I definitely don't want anybody to throw shade or whatever at me, but I mean, Tennant was and is a fantastic actor and a fantastic Doctor. I mean, he when I started watching the show and was completely shocked, with Eccleston ending, and then this Tennant, I completely went in, I was like, okay, well, yeah, this guy's kind of quirky, but my favorite isn't Tennant. It's his predecessor, or is that right? Well, the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith.
Matt Smith. I thought so, but and he does the same thing. Like, he kind of like we go younger again for a second.
Yeah. The 11th hour where he makes his debut is one of my favorite episodes. Mainly because right towards the end where he's having this discussion with the alien that is being obnoxious and threatening, and it shows him walking through all of these images of his previous selves, going from William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davidson, and Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and so on. And finally he comes up through Tennant's face, and it's him, and he's like, I'm the Doctor. And the alien realizes, oh shit, I don't want to mess with this guy, and he just fucking flies off. And I mean, there was just something about Matt Smith's performance as the Doctor through his tenure, or not tenure, but as his so many years that he played the character, that I was like, this guy's awesome from day one. And as far as my favorite companion, Matt Smith didn't have many. He had like maybe a handful. He had Amy Pond and Rory, and
which play hugely into the story even up to today, but not my favorite.
But my favorite was and is Clara. Clara Oswald is I fell in love with her the moment she popped in. I believe the Snowman. She made a brief appearance in that. She didn't show
Yeah.
up until later, but uh, she's just fantastic, and I love the camaraderie between her and Matt Smith. Doctor. The bow tie, his look. I thought was, I was jealous. I was like, God, I wish I could pull that off. Me kind of being overweight. No, it's just not. I know what I can wear and what I can't wear, but I mean,
you could do a bow tie.
I did a bow tie. I had when my nephew got married, I wore like, I had my dress clothes, suit, whatever, and I had a bow tie because I was like, I'm wearing a bow tie, and I don't care what anyone says because my nephew was like, oh God, you're going to be in our pictures. You're going to be wearing a bow. I said, bow ties are cool and they're in style.
Exactly.
They're in style. Quit,
They have come back.
Yeah, but and even all of the episodes. I mean, the episodes with the one episode, the Doctor's Wife, we were talking about the TARDIS kind of being its own. That was a fantastic episode. That's one of my favorites, along with the Asylum of the Daleks.
Yes.
But I guess the only, the next one for me would be Peter Capaldi.
Yes.
He's
angry, he's gritty, he's old.
I identified. I love this because like none of the other doctors I could identify with certain parts of their personality. Okay. Capaldi was like, I get this, doctor. Oh yeah. I really, I can, and I started watching, and this is where I introduced, like my friend Crystal had not really watched. She'd heard of Doctor Who. She knew a little bit about it, but she'd never really watched it. But she watched the first season of Capaldi with me, and it was just really fun to share that with somebody. Again, when you're showing somebody one of your favorite shows and they're kind of getting into it, they're starting to kind of learn about it. I think that's another reason Capaldi is special to me, is because it was I got a chance to share it with a friend, and just because I'm an angry person a lot of times, not like angry in the way of like throwing things or being, but it's just hard for me not to just be angry
internally cynical.
Yeah,
I guess
internally.
You're internally.
Yeah. And that's how Capaldi's doctor was. I mean, he had all of this shit that he was having to deal with, and it was very, I don't know if cathartic's the right word with watching him, and especially the Zygon invasion and inversion episode. He is really just like on fire. But as far as like the modern Who, like Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi are my favorites. And let me just say as a quick footnote, I did watch the first season of Jodie Whittaker's portrayal of the Doctor, and I think she was a fantastic pick for the character. I had no problem with casting.
That brought some that brought some controversy as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of toxicity when it comes to her run, but the showrunner, to me, was just a terrible writer. That's the only problem I have with,
because it wasn't Russell T Davis or Stephen Moffat anymore.
No.
Most of these episodes
was some guy named Chibnall or something.
Yes, most of Jodie's episodes were written by Chris Chibnall.
Yeah,
Chibnall, and
he can't write.
I'm trying to see what else he did.
And those who like his writing, I mean, that's fine. I'm not, telling you not to enjoy it. I didn't. I was bored all through the first season, and
Well, he wrote a lot of Torchwood, and I liked Torchwood, but and I think he'd written some past Who, but this Who I didn't. Like I said, I've only watched a little.
I liked the characters in Torchwood. I didn't like the show.
Oh, you did? Oh, so what's funny is that you bring that up. Jerry has never really. He's tried to watch Who with me, and he understands it. He gets it. He just can't get into it. But he loved Torchwood. Loved Torchwood.
Well, Torchwood kind of like, to me, kind of was kind of like on the X-Files kind of weird.
It's like X-Files meets Doctor Who meets John
it was
not
a lot more adult kind of content, or
it's got more like shoot 'em up, bang bang kind of
stuff.
Right. More
and,
action.
You have Captain Jack again, another really popular character. John Bowerman, a fantastic
man. He threw Tim Tams at my face. It's okay.
he really chewed up the scenery whenever he was on. Doing Captain Jack on, but I just couldn't. I watched those seasons of Torchwood. I think there were a couple, but I really, at the end of the day, I was like, just really wasn't. The episodes didn't grab me, and I guess I was kind of bored, and I guess that kind of relates to like, Jodie's run or Chibnall's run, because like I said, Jodie was fantastic. I didn't have a problem with her in the world. She was, I think, a good pick for being the first female doctor, and but it, the actress or an actor can only do as much as what's written on the page.
I agree.
If you have a bad writer, that actor can't fix, what is written. They can't improve it. They can just do the best that they can in their performance. And I don't judge them on this. If the story and the content is lacking, it's not on them. It's on the showrunner. It's on the writer. But okay, that's mine. What about you?
So we've kind of talked about villains already, but while I really enjoy the villains, my favorite villain actually is they're called the Family of Time, and I was trying to look up what episode this was they were from. This is when the Doctor basically is so terrified of the notion of dealing with this family that he actually becomes human and, assumes the identity of a school teacher. And I want to say this is when he's got Martha with him. He no longer has Rose. He's got Martha, who I do like.
Martha Jones. You're talking about Martha Jones?
Yeah, he's got Martha Jones with him at this point.
Oh, let me just say this real quick.
Yeah.
She's an honorable mention as a companion for me.
Absolutely.
I loved Martha Jones, and she didn't seem like she had a very long stint with a doctor.
She didn't.
She was awesome, and
I really liked her.
Again, I know I was talking to one of my other friends, and we were discussing who's a better companion. They were like, he said Rose, I said Martha, and he was like laughing. I was like, no, Martha to me was a better companion. I like Rose, and for what her character was, she was fine. I said, Martha's a doctor. She's got a lot of skills.
Yes.
She's,
well, I think
we were just being nerds. So yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
of course. No, I was just gonna say, I think Rose is still my favorite, but I think Martha came at such the perfect time because he was so broken from Rose. And if you're familiar with the series, then you know. If you're not, please watch it. It will break your heart, but it is fantastic. But he's so broken from Rose, so he's a different version of himself. And here comes this very bubbly, willing to help anyone, Martha. And her very family that is just like, are you crazy? You don't know this man. But they end up they are in the English countryside in 1913, and there's this family that they're called the Family of Blood. So it's like multiple villains working together as this, like, there's like mother, father, sister, brother. That's what they actually call each other. And it's really, I don't know. I found that episode and that villain both to be extremely fascinating. Some of my other, because you mentioned a couple episodes you really enjoy, some of my other episodes I really enjoy. There's one that Capaldi does when Clara is his companion. I cannot find the name of it just because I can't remember at what point it was in their series. Because in full transparency for everyone, I am about, something happened and I don't know what, but in about 2016-ish, I just had too many things, too many irons in the fire, and Doctor Who kind of like went to the wayside. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing my rewatch, is because I want to make sure I remember, of course, I remember all of 9, 10, and 11, and I enjoy them. So I'm just watching them just cause. But there is an episode that I did watch when Clara is with Capaldi. So with 12. And there's this whole school children. And I remember this episode, like, I genuinely cried because without saying it, it essentially is the child that they help is, she's treated at school. They talk about how she's quirky and she's different and she talks to the air, and they end up helping her because she is bright. Like, everyone makes fun of her, but she's talking to the air because there really is something there. She really can see it. And essentially what the writers are telling you about this young girl, without just flat out saying it, is that she's autistic. And I don't know why, but, well, I do know why. My child is autistic, and it just hit me in such a way that is one of my favorite episodes. It's very hard to, it's very good. It's very well done because Capaldi ends up being, he's so understanding of her. And to him, he's like, she's not weird. She's not, I think he even has a phrase where everybody like keeps calling her weird and quirky. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, she's not weird. I think it'd be remiss if I didn't mention how much I love Lady Cassandra from David Tennant Run.
Yeah.
Who is not really a villain, but she is in the same sense. Like, she is a villain, but her episode is very good as well. And I rewatched Donna, and rewatching her made me have a new appreciation for her, but she's like one of my least favorite companions, and I hate saying that.
Well, I mean, Donna has got, I understand, like, her appeal and why, she is a very popular companion.
She is.
I don't have, I'm kind of neutral when it comes. She was a good companion. I enjoyed all the episodes she was in with Tennant but it's some companions you kind of vibe with, and others that you don't like Rose, as and I thought Rose is a great character, but I just never vibed with her. I never was like,
and
and everybody else, like one of my other friends was rewatching Who just a couple of months ago, and he texted me, he's like, dude, I'm bawling my eyes out right now. And I'm like, what's up?
Which is what I said too.
I'm rewatching, the Tennant and the, the the 10th Doctor and Rose and that whole, and I'm like, dude, why do you do that to yourself?
I think you even told me you were like, yeah, it's really sad.
And but I get it. I understand that's a very, but to me, that was just another episode. And it was, I understand and recognize it was sad, but that's all it was to me. But to everybody else, that's like, that's it. And even my friends like, you don't get choked up. I was like, no. I
think
it doesn't, and it's only because I didn't vibe with Rose and the whole relationship thing between her and the 10th Doctor. I really was like, this is going to sound horrible. I was like, I don't care about their relationship. I want to see some more stuff.
Right.
It's like I don't need this, in my shows or whatever. But I know that that's part of it. There's
Oh, I
people that
love,
like that
yeah.
kind
Except like for me, that was like, I was like, oh, I loved it.
yeah, people that have that romantic streak and
Hmm.
want to see that stuff. I get it, and completely understand why that is really, uh, you know, there's very few television episodes of that affect me on a emotional level to where uh, I will have a physical reaction, tear up, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and the only one that comes to mind for me, and it's not even Doctor Who, it's a completely other series that I'm completely obsessed with, and that's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And
Hmm.
that was the episode that Joan died, Buffy's mother.
Oh, yes.
That episode,
That
I
is.
it's hard for me to rewatch. When I'm rewatching the series, I
There's
usually
another one in Buffy that
skip.
really makes,
I have to kind of
yeah.
skip past that one because that one still breaks me because it was
Yeah.
still raw because my mom had died back in 1999. So
So it was like right around the same time.
that episode when I remember when I was watching that episode and everybody, all the guys were all piled up in my living room and we're watching that episode and that happens. I literally I excuse myself and I go into the bathroom and just sit on the toilet and I just silently sobbed to myself for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I mean it was bad, but that kind of emotion.
You have to have a tie to elicit that kind of emotion.
Yeah,
And you
and
just didn't find that tie to Rose
no,
like
and
I did, and I'm
yeah,
sure other
and like
people
you
did.
and my
Yeah.
friend Johnny was the other person who texted me. It's like, oh man, I'm bawling, man. This episode is killing me.
When you tell
And
Johnny I cried too.
yeah, I
Same.
will. I will.
But I think my problem overall with Donna is when they initially introduced her. I'm going to use a couple of words that sound really mean, but they made her so stupid and like vapid, for lack of a better word, that I was like, what are we doing? Because we'd gone from Rose to Martha to then really? And she does grow on you. So like I said, I'm rewatching a bunch of her episodes and she actually has extremely grown on me. And without Donna, we actually don't get extremely important things that come much later. So she does kind of grow on you. She's still not my favorite. But I love the episode that she does. It's also kind of sad when you like really rewatch it again, it's in the library. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's like, and it basically sets up information for like moving forward with the series in general. So I do also really like that one. I have a hard time like narrowing down. Like Kelley and I were making our lists and he was like, this is hard. I was like, I know, I keep second guessing myself.
Yeah, because like when we were originally going to uh, record this podcast, I had kind of forgotten what our topic was, but I was like, I can give me an hour and I can pull something together,
Yeah.
no problem. When I started kind of working on it, I was like, oh, I can't do this in an hour.
Yeah.
I've got too much stuff I've got to look up.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
this is a difficult one.
it really is. What I will say is we kind of mentioned earlier that there's like these little side characters like K9 that you just kind of fall in love with. And in regards to Donna, because without her, we don't get her grandpa.
Right.
And Donna's grandpa to this
Is the
day
best.
is literally he's not ever an official companion. He does join them a few times, but like his belief in Donna and his belief in the doctor and his like, I don't want to say blind faith because that makes him sound like he's stupid, but he's not. He when she tells him about the doctor, when he learns about it, most people wouldn't believe, right? And he just looks at her with this love and care and is like, okay, just be careful. Like, have fun. Like, go live your life. I think he's the one that when her mom is like, no, stay, her grandpa's like, go, 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 go. Like, so without Donna, we wouldn't have him. And also without Donna, we wouldn't have the wonderful episode that is the adipose.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I texted you this and I was like, they're so misunderstood. The adipose actually are not the villains. They're just the product of the villain, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love those stupid little things, which is, it's just fat. It's essentially someone's fat. Oh, but I love those little guys so much. Do you have a favorite little like sidekick or honorable mention for any of these?
Oh, excuse me. As far as like little side characters and like kind of like the supporting cast that kind of they're not in every episode, but they make appearances.
Mm-hmm.
I think Donna's grandfather really is like the is really my favorite when it comes to, you know, because there's not like a whole lot of them, you know. I mean, it's ever so often it's like I can't think of I know the character. I don't remember the character's name, and I don't want to like go into some huge rabbit hole trying to do it. But there are characters that kind of come and go that make little appearances to add some thing to the story. But I think Donna's grandfather to me is
Right.
by far really my favorite. I mean,
You
there's
kinda-
not really, you know.
I mean, you kind of have them throughout. I mean, Rose kind of gives you Mickey the idiot and her mom. You know, with Martha, it's her whole family, so to speak, and Jack. We get Captain Jack a lot at that point too. With Matt Smith's character, the 11th Doctor, you know, he has Amy Pond, and he kind of gets two companions in the fact that like Rory is kind of like a side character, sidekick, but he ends up being there almost as much as Amy. Of course, River Song, his wife, pops in and out, and they're all very great characters that are a component to the larger overall story. I've watched like clips of Jodie's, so I can't really tell you who that is for her and there. I know my mom, as I mentioned, lost it when Jodie, and it had nothing to do with it being a woman. Because listen, if you were a fan of Who, you knew it was coming because I believe it's the Matt Smith regeneration, like when he becomes from Tennant to Smith.
Yeah.
They always like feel themselves, like they pat their face and they're like, "Whoo, all here." And I remember one of them, the joke is still not a lady.
Right. Well, I remember in a Doctor Who magazine, because that was the way you got news back in the day, and that one of the books I would pick up at the local comic shop. I think around the Colin Baker, right before he leaves and Sylvester McCoy takes over, there was a article written in the Doctor Who magazine about, you know, could the Doctor become, you know, regenerate into a female version of the Doctor? And there were a lot of talk. I mean, there was always, I think, some sort of discussion about speculating, you know, could this happen? Would this happen? But I don't, you know, would I have been bothered by that at that time in my life? No, you know, not at all.
I think it was inevitable for sure.
But it was one of those things that they didn't feel the audience was ready. You know, I guess that's the only thing I can think of is when they were brainstorming, you know, or writing, you know, who the next Doctor would be, what and who they were going to be.
And you know what? I could see at that time that it would not be. I could see based on what we know about television at the time that it was not the time. Eventually it was going to be. And so I knew it was coming, but my mother's problem was not that it was a woman. It was that it was Jodie.
Yeah.
She did not like her. Her and David Tennant have actually worked together on a show called Broadchurch, which is a gut-wrenching, heartbreaking show. Season 1 is the murder of a young boy in like this small like coastal town, and David comes in to like solve it. He's like I guess he's from like a higher up facility, and Jodie in that plays the mother of the young man that is murdered. And my mother did not like her her acting as the mother. It made her very angry, and that's so when they announced her as the new doctor, my mom was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
So, but I hear she's fantastic. I haven't watched any, and like I said, it has nothing to do with like, oh, they regenerated into a woman. It's just somewhere around 2016-ish when it was still Capaldi.
Mm-hmm.
I had too many things going on, and then I was behind, and you don't want to like skip his episodes because Doctor Who does continue the story. We do, as I mentioned earlier, like Sarah Jane has come back, and K9 has come back, and they helped David Tennant and Mickey and Rose at one point. And so it would be dumb for me to skip ahead to Jodie. But I hear it's fantastic. And then I earlier I said the new Doctor was the 14th Doctor, but technically I would be incorrect on that because they actually did a special where Jodie regenerates to Tennant and relives an old face who is the 14th Doctor. And we get a special to tell a really good story, bring back a bunch of characters, and then we get a regeneration into our current. I think there's only maybe 2 episodes out at the moment, plus the special. Nashuti Gatwa is the 15th Doctor. And I'm really looking forward to, like I said, I've seen some clips. I don't know if you've seen any, but he is a fantastic actor in general. I've seen him on other things. So I'm really looking forward to like where they take that with him, but I got to get there first. I got to get there. So you stopped about what you said, the season 1 of Jodie?
Yeah, season 1 of Jodie's run is where I stopped. I do intend to finish her her run. I intend to watch the next finish up her seasons before I start. And by the time I because I have like a watch like what I'm going to watch as far as like, because I have a lot of stuff, so it's
same
on here to watch. And as soon as probably by the time I finish her run, the next series I'll be able to
you should have multiples to kind of
I should have quite a bit to watch, so it works out good for me that way.
Let's see.
But,
where can people watch Doctor Who? I'm going to look to see where you can watch all the Doctor Who's. Because I know the new with Nashuti is on Disney Plus, which, as I said, is fantastic. And I think the Christmas special they did where you get Tennant back briefly to turn into the new one. They're all are going to be on Disney Plus. The modern Who from are easier to find than obviously the 60s, 70s, and 80s. In the UK, if you are in the UK, you can watch seasons 1 through 13 of Doctor Who on BBC iPlayer. US, it says it's on Max. And I don't think we have any your Australian listeners, but maybe if we do, like, good day. Please don't kill me for my accent. But if you're in Australia, you can watch it on Foxtel. If you are European, kind of like me, you can watch it on Pluto TV.
Yeah. I've actually watched a few on Pluto.
Have you?
Yeah, just like I don't want to go to bed so I need an hour to kill. So if I'm like, maybe I've done playing games for the night or for the day,
Yeah.
so I'll hop on Pluto and watch like an old episode of Doctor Who or
Pluto's
Next Gen or,
fantastic.
or something. Yeah, it's really. I'm glad I downloaded the app
Mhm.
just because I mean since I don't have cable and the
I really
only
don't know anybody that does anymore, to be
the
honest with you.
only and I don't have any more streaming services. Well, the only one I have is Paramount, and that's so I can watch all my Star Trek crap.
Yep.
And the hopefully the new season of Strange New Worlds, I think that'll be the third season. Will I look forward to watching it, and to give it a little plug, Strange New Worlds is awesome. It is a great, uh, great Star Trek series. So I'm really really happy with it. But that's the only streaming service I have is Paramount.
I forgot that. That's so. It says if you would like to watch Classic Who, you can actually, which I do. This is a subscription I do recommend for people that like British television of all kinds. It's called BritBox. There's two, BritBox, Acorn. They both have different shows. BritBox is fantastic though. It has a lot of older stuff on it, and apparently you can get the first 26 seasons, or they label it different. So our current seasons versus classic, it's much different, as Kelley was saying earlier. But you can get those on BritBox. It does say the only countries with access to classic Doctor Who at this time are users based in the US or the UK. So if you are in another part of the world trying to use BritBox, just use a VPN.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. And it's funny you mentioned Strange New Worlds. Caden and I actually like, and I will say it is a little more adult on a couple times. There's only a couple episodes because Caden, obviously when we first started watching this, he was like 16. But there is a Star Trek like cartoon or animated series that is not to be confused with the original. There actually was a Star Trek animated series. So not to be confused with that one from back in the day, but it's called Star Trek Lower Decks. It is hysterical. So while Kelley is plugging and recommending Strange New Worlds, I recommend Star Trek Lower Decks, especially if you are a person that likes like Futurama or Disenchanted from Netflix. I recommend it. It really didn't have any episodes where I was like, oh, watching it with my teenager until season 2, and it was like one episode, and it's really funny though because it blurs out anything that would be considered nudity because it's a cartoon. So it's got literal like digital blur across it. Like it's part of, it's really funny. So I recommend that while Kelley's recommending Star Trek shows. So overall, Doctor Who will always be one of my favorites. Really looking forward to see what Nashuti does coming up. Hopefully, if you are a fan, you can do a rewatch. So since there is such a apparently much easier way to watch them than I had originally thought there were. Any final thoughts? Sorry, I suddenly have the hiccups. Any final thoughts on Doctor Who?
Not really. I mean, I think that, we just scratched the surface when it comes to
absolutely.
the Who universe. If this is your first introduction, I would suggest, just either like start with the modern. I think really the modern would be the best way to go.
I think so as well.
If you're an old soul and you don't mind the cheesy graphics and kind of the cringy dialogue, sometimes the classics will give you like the foundation and the heart and spirit of where this show started and why it became such a phenomenon. But like I said, we just kind of barely
Yeah.
scratched. There's a lot to the Who universe, and if you're interested, I mean, there's plenty of sites to go check out. There's books. They're still doing some of the older doctors who like Colin Baker, Peter Davidson, Sylvester McCoy. They've all done audio episodes, new episodes with their them portraying the Doctor that I don't have any. I plan on maybe downloading some to listen to, but I've heard nothing but just they're awesome. So
I'm checking really quick while you say that. I know most all of them are available on Audible. A lot of them are special, like a special contract with Audible. There are so many options here. There's over 1,000 results when you type in Doctor Who. Now, of course, that does include like other languages, and of course some stuff that actually does not pertain to Doctor Who specifically. But I was looking because I want to say sometimes they are, every now and then, especially when they're new, when they do like the Audible, what am I trying to say? Like the dramatized adaptations. They can sometimes be free. I will say I highly recommend some of these that use the dramatized adaptations because there's been a few with Tenet that I've really enjoyed, and they do sounds like, for example, like when there's feet, like you actually hear like someone walking. It's like a whole production, and it's like one of those old like radio show plays for some of these, and then the others they're literally just book and audio form. There's an app game that I tried to play recently. There was an old video game. I don't know. Did you ever play the video game? I didn't.
I didn't know.
But this is one of those franchises and fandoms that there's books, there's some games. I think there's even like fan-made D&D campaigns for Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. There's literally something for everyone. I feel like if you're into sci-fi, there is, I think Kelley would agree with me, there's a lot of, especially in New Who, where undertones of like romantic will they, won't they, if that's something that you're into. I don't know. I don't feel like I can say anything bad about it. There are episodes I don't like, companions I don't care for, things like that. But overall, it is one of my favorite franchises ever. It's a comfort watch. It is just a love, essentially. And I think we could take this and we could become a podcast that only talked about Doctor Who and broke it down episode by episode, and we still would probably not cover everything.
And if you're looking for those kind of podcasts, there are plenty out there. There
are some fantastic ones.
There are some fantastic ones. I wish I'd looked some up to plug, but I don't. I know that if you're interested in those things, you'll track some down. You'll find some good ones.
There's actually an official one, which I think is more just like interviews and such. But there is an official Doctor Who podcast that you can get. I think it's produced by BBC. So if I'm not mistaken, it's basically like discussion. I've only listened to a couple of them, but they talk about like the latest episode on the newest one. So yeah, that's brought to you by BBC. So they have an official Doctor Who podcast. There was one I used to listen to, and I really wish I had written it down. I have certain podcasts that I listen to. I don't really have any Doctor Who ones that I have. And it's just the fact that I only listen to podcasts like if I'm driving somewhere, or sometimes I'll listen to them at work, but it's kind of one of those I have to be in the mood to kind of listen to them. And I I've really narrowed down the ones I listen to. I still have some that I've been following for years and years, and their content is just enough to captivate me. But even then, like, I have about 5 total, and like right now I've only listened to one recently. I'm behind on the others. So I think that's normal. I listen to them while cleaning, when I'm on the train, when I'm driving, things like that. I did just find a website that I've never heard of before, but if you're looking for a Doctor Who podcast that goes much more in depth, has many more episodes, just following, there is a website I just discovered called Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.org. Say that again, Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.org. And it looks like it has a full list that is extensive of both active and dormant Doctor Who podcasts. So it goes, there's like the history of Doctor Who literature is one of them. There's another one called Tin Dog Podcast, which, how cute. And it's it's a current one. So yeah, if that's your thing, I just found that just by Googling Doctor Who podcast, but I'm going to send that to you too.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, there's a lot. Is there anything before we let the good boys and girls go today, that you would like to share? Anything you got?
I think that when it comes to like Doctor Who and Strange New Worlds, Star Trek, all of those different series, when you talk about like having comfort watching shows, like people that watch shows over and over, or they put on this for comfort. Funny enough, it's weird, like Doctor Who used to be a long time ago, and this was before I really kind of knew what I was doing. This was like when I was taping Doctor Who back in the 80s. I would rewatch episodes over and over again.
Same.
I would just turn it on and play, and I would work on like one of my D&D campaigns. And on the weekends, like one of my friends would come in. He would like, one of my friends like spent the weekend at my place every weekend because my parents would go to the beach every weekend. I had the house to myself, and like a lot of my friends, because we were all gaming and doing shit, they all just kind of piled on my house and just, they were there for the weekend. We'd order pizzas, but one of my friends came in my room and I was working, and he went over and he turned off my Doctor Who episode, and I immediately was like, turn that back on.
Do not turn off my body. Whatever my body doubling thing
like,
is, don't turn that off.
He goes, you've watched this I don't know how many times. He goes,
he goes,
you're not even watching it. I said,
yes,
I'm listening.
I am.
I'm listening, and I'm working on tonight's campaign. Go out, leave. I'm busy. Go in the other room, bother somebody else. Because he wanted to play my Sega Genesis, and I was like, look, unplug it, take it into the living room. So, but funny enough, or whatever, Doctor Who's not, I don't watch that anymore for comfort. And I've learned that you move on to other things, like for me, I've like rewatched the first and second season of Strange New Worlds. I'll have that on. Like if I'm cleaning the house or whatever, I'll just load it up and play it. Star Trek Voyager is still on my rotation of things to watch, especially like if I'm sick. That and reruns of The Price is Right from the 70s. Because like when you were sick, that was, you got to watch game shows and lay on the couch and eat chicken soup. And
that's what we did. We watched PBS, Price is Right. Sometimes in my day, it was some Ricky Lake and
but I think that to me is the great thing about these shows, is that they can become a part of your life, and they can take on those, they can be comforting, that when you need, maybe you just need, you need something there to give you some solace or
Mhm.
some peace or, some happiness, maybe something that you watch this episode and it's fun, it's happy, it's in a, it will put you in a better mood. That's what I love about these shows. That's what they can do. And if you have those shows, if you're listening and you can relate and you have these shows that you know uh you turn on when you need a boost, that's awesome. I mean, that's it's never a bad thing. Don't let anybody, like, if somebody comes into your room and says, "Hey, you've watched this before. I want to play something." Go somewhere else. Don't
Right.
don't touch my
Go
show.
somewhere else.
Don't bother my vibe. I'm trying to work on it. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've got to say.
Well, I think I know what our next topic should be then.
Oh, great. What is that? Because
I think, well, we didn't have one planned, but you just inspired me. And I think we should really do a deep dive on comfort watches.
oh
We
yeah,
should do a
yeah,
deep dive
that's
on comfort
that's
watches. Because, like, while you're saying that, I was over here scribbling down what my comfort watches are. And obviously, if we're going to do that, I won't go into it, but I'll just say, like, I'm the
yeah.
same.
I won't
Um,
talk anymore because there were quite a few others I was gonna
yeah, I have a bunch.
was gonna
But
mention.
Doctor Who is obviously one of mine, but, like, I'll go into it more if this is what we decide to do. But, like, one of
Yeah,
my big ones is Phineas and Ferb. Like,
yeah, yeah. That's a great idea. I like that. So awesome.
yeah. So thank you for listening to us go on and,
Thank-
as Kelly said, just kind of skim the top of this Doctor Who. Please don't forget that we do have a Place to Be Nation Facebook group, and we'd love to have you there. Currently, right now, we do have a tournament that I think you'd be interested in, Kelly. Sometimes we have tournaments over there, and this one is like we're going through cartoons of our youth, and when I mean youth, like they cover, like, there's some from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, up to current, and we're going to break it all down. This will go on for some time. We're only on a couple of days in at when Kelly and I were recording at this time. We're only a couple of days into it, so by the time you listen, it may be a week or so into it. But we're making our way through these, and eventually we will narrow it down to what is the best cartoon of our youth according to the group. Like, this is not like, but yeah, so we do things like that over there. If you are a wrestling fan, there's a lot of wrestling discussion over there. We would love to, there is pop culture discussion. There's something for everyone. We encourage you, if you are a fan of any show on Place to Be Nation or one of our fellow family/sister brother feeds, to please join. We do not have an actual, we did have a Facebook. And we it's not defunct. We just, you and I, neither one keep up with it, for specifically
Yeah.
Lady in the Beard. But if you'd like to reach out, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok under Mom's a Nerd. Kelly, you're comfortable with people finding you on Instagram, right? Is it Instagram or?
Yeah. Let me look and see. I mean, the only thing I do on Instagram is post comic book crap, just pictures and stuff. But
Yeah.
if somebody wants to message me or something, I am at Tinsel 2814
Mm-hmm.
is my Instagram, whatever it is. uh, yeah, you could check me out there if you want to contact me, since I don't get, like, if you message me, I'll check it.
Yeah.
I'll check it. But yeah, I'd have to go back and look at our Facebook page and see if, because I know that
It's still there.
it's still there, but it's kind of like in limbo. I can see about maybe getting it back up and
Basically just have to
or-
be active.
yeah, maybe do something.
And my personal Facebook is just like private, so I always forget about it. I always forget.
I would have gotten rid of Facebook a long time ago, but I have a few relatives that
Yes.
that's their only way, and like Instagram, the only thing I post on Facebook is like cartoon or nerd stuff, and that's it. So
yeah.
And I kind of just like it that way. I don't, because as soon as those relatives pass on the
Move
rainbow
on from this
bridge, or
mortal coil.
gone from this realm, I will be deactivating my Facebook page, and just because it doesn't, I mean, for those people that use it and communicate, it's great, but I've just never been a Facebook person.
Fun
And
fact, I did learn you can cancel your Facebook like account, like page or whatever it's called now, and you can still have Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably still do that, because I know it would just, I mean, the messenger part of it is really the only thing that, I keep up with, so I can talk to, cousins and a couple aunts and uncles that are still among us. But and all of my like real life friends that I have, are on I have friends Facebook wise. I've got a couple, like 100 or so. So I've got a buddy of mine who's got like 3,000 friends, and I was like,
I don't have 3,000.
Do you
but
talk
I have...
to those people? He's like, I don't know. I just friend everybody, and I'm like,
oh
no, no.
I have like over 1,000, and I mean, somebody was like, "But do you talk to everyone?" I don't, and I've actually gone through and like cut down a lot of people over the years, but. To anybody that's like, how do you have over 1,000 friends? So I went to 2 different high schools in 2 different states. Then I went to college. I married a guy that was military. So we have moved around a lot, and you make friends at every base that you go to. And I have my family on there. And then we've lived now in how many different countries, and we make friends in every country that we have moved to. And, if I allow them to be my friend on there, like, yeah, at some point you end up like me and you're at 1,155 people.
Yeah, I mean, I get having a lot of friends and stuff, and like my buddy who I mentioned had like 3,000 friends. He networks. So I mean, I kind of understand having, but again, I think this is the Aquarius in me, where it's like, I don't want to say I hate people. I do say that a lot, but
no, you have a curated bubble of people that you enjoy.
Yeah, that's really it, and it's very when it comes to social media, like, I'm not an old fogey. I've been around through the different iterations of the social media beginnings, like ICQ and fucking AOL and
oh my god, AOL. Yeah.
But I'm just at this point where text messaging is great. I love that. But phone calls, I'm not a fan of phone calls anymore. Unless it's like something, if it's an emergency, it's a completely different animal.
Oh, absolutely.
But like, the only people that really call me is like my sister. And normally when she calls me, because she texts me a lot, but when she calls, I know some shit's happened. It's always bad. Somebody's died. That's usually the case. So it's like, I freak out. You and I don't even
call each other, which sounds bad. We've been friends for like, I don't know, like over 10 years. And we do Marco each other, which is kind of like a form of calling each other. And then like when I still lived locally nearby, I would call and be like, hey, I'm on my way to your house. I'm going to Publix. What do you want? Right. Or because I knew if I called you, you would like answer, you'd hear the phone. But if I just texted you and said, I'm on my way to Publix, like we did that a few times, and you'd be like, I didn't see your message. Dang it, I wanted this. So like I would call. But like I also, like the other day, there was something we needed to get done, and Jerry goes, you may just have to call them. And I literally gave him this face. Like I think everybody will know what I'm talking about. The Chrissy Teigen face, where like, you're not grinning, and like you got this solid straight like grin, and you're like, eh. Yeah, I made the Chrissy Teigen face at him, and he was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, I'm gonna see if I can email them first. Like,
there's a lot of folks that have like, they would joke about like millennials not, or maybe it was Gen Z, not being able to order or go up and order a meal from like somebody at like McDonald's that they have
Mhm.
they're awkward about. Dude, I was like that in high school. Like if I went to like I said to mom, "Hey, can we order pizza tonight for dinner?"
Mhm.
Because I know there's like sometimes I could ask and she'd say, "Yeah, go ahead. That would save me from having to cook." But you have to call. You'd have to
Yeah.
order it. And
That's
I
how we
was
used to have to, boys and girls. You had to
yeah,
call.
and I was like, uh okay, because I really want pizza, but I was hoping you would do it. No, you go ahead and call. You know the number. And I would just have this dread of dialing Domino's or Pizza Hut and saying, "Yeah, I'd like to order a pizza." you
Oh
know,
my God, no. If it makes you feel better, I had a weird interaction like this the other day, and I'm almost 40.
yeah, yep.
Like the
It's it's
girl
it's
is,
it
oh,
stays with you to an extent. You might be a little
yes.
bit better at it. I mean, I have no problem ordering food now. I mean, if I have,
Hmm.
but a lot of times, like I'll go through the drive-through and I have to talk to somebody.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm so glad
but
I don't have to do that here.
they're like McDonald's is the only one here in town that they have the little kiosks.
See,
If
which
I
I need.
if I decide to go in, and normally sometimes I do just because I just want to go inside. I'll use the kiosk just because I don't have to talk to anybody. And going to McDonald's, there's always this little thing like I get Diet Coke. I know it's not good for you. I mean, like McDonald's food's not good for you. But every so often I will grab McDonald's on the way home from work because I'm fucking tired, I'm exhausted, and I don't want to cook. But when I go to McDonald's, I always get Diet Coke, and I always remember that one time I was sitting here and you rarely ever ask me for anything. It's usually me.
No.
It's
Is
usually me
that the
going,
day I
"Eh,
texted you and I was like, I feel like I'm dying. I want to, and you were like, what do you want? I was like, I
yeah,
just want a Coke from McDonald's. And you were like, do you want
just like
something to eat? And I was like, no, I just want a Coke from
you,
McDonald's.
you wanted a Coke from McDonald's,
Oh, I wanted.
and I just thought that was such a weird thing. I mean, I
Dude,
was gonna go do. I was like, yeah, I'll go do it. That's fine.
it was one of the few things that would help when I had a migraine. It really was. It's and they have come out and said it. McDonald's has
There's
an agreement with Coca-Cola that their syrup to carbonation ratio, like it's secret. It's like that KFC recipe. It is
well, it's
top
also I think they
secret.
come in these stainless steel canisters or whatever. It
Well,
it, it
that is how it
make you
comes everywhere. Yeah.
yeah.
But they
You're
have
right.
a secret ratio of syrup to carbonation and like but yeah, you did bring Caden chicken nuggets when that happened too, because I was like, well, I guess I should probably feed my child.
Yeah. I think I got some nuggets for Caden, and but that's usually like, and it does. I mean, the for some reason the fountain drinks at McDonald's hit different than if you just bought a 2 liter or bought a 12 pack or whatever.
Or
And
if you went to Burger King, which
yeah. Well, it's like a lot of times when you go anywhere else, it's like either their carbonation's off or
yeah,
you know they it's always something, and it's become worse. I've
yes.
noticed that my coworker and I were talking about uh, the fast food uh, problems that are going on, and
Hmm.
it's like expensive, and like I've cut back. Like
Yes.
I said, I ever so often, like once a month maybe or twice, I will hit up you know I'll take like McDonald's, or what my normal go to is I'll go to Jin Jin's and get
Oh, Jin Jin.
General Tso's chicken or Mongolian beef or something like that.
For anyone that doesn't know, it's so Kelly and I obviously lived like right around the corner from each other. Literally, we could be at each other's house in less than 5 minutes. When I still lived in the U.S., and we had this restaurant in our city.
I
It was
think every place
Chinese.
has
Everybody's has one, but ours
yeah,
is specifically Jin Jin, and it just hits
and
different.
they all hit they I've looked up restaurants that are like Jin's, and they almost all look the same, and they all
They
kind of
do.
have the same. And I'm sure that's just the way, they're set up, or whoever decides to open one and such. But, it's the only, we have another one that is, I think, Dragon Garden it's a like
Dragon Garden.
And to me, Jin's is just better overall. But yeah, just the pricing. It's like, are they going to price themselves out of the? I know they've been talking about it. It's like, hey, McDonald's and these other companies are looking at, hey, our numbers are down. Well, that's because your audience or your consumers are folks that are, barely making ends meet, and they kind of do McDonald's or whatever. It's kind of like, and now they really can't. It's killing their pocketbook or their wallet to go and get some food for them and their family or whatever, and I don't know. I'm off on a tangent now about food, but yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
On a tangent. I could do a whole episode on my tangent about food.
Well, that's usually like my coworker and I, we will talk about, because like he likes to cook, I don't. So he's always coming up with like, hey, you should try this. I came up with this recipe for this and this, and you should try this. And I'm like, okay, if it's easy and simple, that's all I need, so.
I do try to send you easy and simple things when I find it, but yeah. But yeah, we can go on rants about food another day if you guys would like. I love food, and food is part of the nerd culture as well. We usually all love it. But thank you for letting us go on tangents about food prices in America. And trust me, it's not just America, boys and girls. As well as all of our favorite things in Doctor Who. Remember, if you want to follow us, go back and follow us on the aforementioned options, as well as the Place to Be Facebook group. And come back next time, where most likely we're going to be talking about comfort watches, but don't get mad if that's not what we're here doing.